Hey guys, Jeff here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to remodel your kitchen backsplash in one weekend for about $350. If you have a small kitchen like I do, most contractors won't even talk to you. But that doesn't mean you can't have a beautiful kitchen, it just means you got to do it yourself. And today I'm going to show you how. Let's get started. We're going to keep the scope of work down. I don't want to remove the whole wall. Remember, this is a double wide trailer. That means all these electrical boxes are attached to the drywall, not the studs. So by making sure we keep our cut nice and narrow, we limit the scope of work because I'm going to be cutting underneath. This drywall will still be engaged, hold the electrical in place, and all I got to do is replace it with something that's 1/4 inch thick. And by only cutting with the tip, there's another stud, I can try to ensure that I'm not going to cut through any kind of electrical line. See the stud there? Okay. I'm going to take my 5-in-1 now. And what I'm doing is I'm reaching in, giving it a bit of a twist, so now I'm catching behind the tile with this edge. There's the twist. Okay. That is how you remove a backsplash. Tile and drywall all together. So we got that. Let's try this piece now. So even where I couldn't cut the drywall, it's so thin that it usually just breaks off in one piece, okay? Then we can trim up those little pieces afterwards with our utility knife. So now guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the next few minutes and cut the rest of this out, and we can take care of the process about how to reinstate the proper product and what kind of thin set we're gonna use to attach our tile, because over top of vinyl wrap, we cannot use an adhesive. In previous videos, I've shown you the benefits of tile adhesive when you're doing a small wall tile, but in this case, we've got to go with a thin set cement. So it changes the rules a little bit. All right, guys, next step. We're going to screw our drywall back. We've lost some integrity because the staple that was here was probably holding most of this drywall on. You'll notice that I have 1x3s as part of my structure here. Very important. I put the drywall screw right in the middle. One thing it does is it holds this drywall, but also marks directly from my next back of material where that screw goes, okay? Mark the top and the bottom here. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna work out well, isn't it? Jeff, you know better than that. Let's just prep the wall. And one of the reasons it's nice to use a saw here, because you got a square cut and the back isn't destroyed. So you can always attach a piece of plywood to solid drywall. Make sure not to put a screw in your finger. Love the quality of the screws. Anyway, let's stick some of this everywhere where I have no backing, because when you're tiling, it's kind of nice to have some backing. All right, so if you're not aware, Hardy backer comes in 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch. So this is a great solution for a lot of problems, especially in these situations. They also are gridded up. You can see this? They come in 1x1 squares. So it's really easy to measure this stuff, okay? And it's 3 feet by 5 feet. So what I do is I like to set it up kind of like 1x4 on my sawhorses, 6.5. I love anything that you can freehand cut. All right. There, I knew it'd work. Beautiful. Now, a 1/4 inch cement board does provide you very similar strength to a 1/2 inch piece of drywall. So if you got any question about that, the answer is yes, it's plenty strong enough. Next thing you need to know though is what thin set we're going to use, because we've already ruled out adhesive. I'm going to recommend we go with the Schluter All Set. Here's why. It's going to bond really well to the cement board, and it'll bond well and cure properly to a vinyl wrap drywall. So you got two different surfaces. This one will absorb water, this one won't, but the one product will work on both substrates, which eliminates the need for me to tear all these walls out, mount all the electrical boxes, do some reframing. This makes this quick work.
Yeah, that sucks, eh? All right.
Here's our options for installation. We can go stacked. We can go 1/3 offset. We can go half offset. Or we can go herringbone. Okay? And I think what I'm going to do is go over the traditional 50% offset. Okay? And then to finish, I picked up some of these ceramic wall trims. We want to measure the whole length of our counter. I always start on a C-shaped countertop with the back wall first, okay? And we are 122.5. We'll write that down for good measure. 122.5, all right? Now our tile is actually 8 5/8 with a grout line. Now you can try to do that math if you want to, but what we do in the real world is we take a few pieces of tile and we just lay them out where we think it's going to go, okay? If you just start in a corner, you end up with ugly cuts. If you try to do the math, you're going to end up with ugly cuts. And there we have it. We have a piece about 1.5 inches long at the other corner. Now, that, for me, is an ugly cut, especially if I'm going to go half and half. So then what happens is you would have a bottom row there, and with a 50% offset, we'd have this row. And then we would cut these two pieces to fit, and then it would duplicate again as we go up. And that's not terrible when you're doing 50% offset, because it does kind of hide those imperfections, because you're not going to have a series of tiny little cuts. Now, if that's the case, and we're going to go with real simple, okay, so simple is good, then I would start in this corner and go that way and leave those cuts over there. The reason for that is the traffic in and out of this kitchen is coming two directions. One direction is when guests come into the room, that's the first corner they're going to see. And the other one is when you come out of your bedroom. And you already know what you're doing, it's your house. So consider what's the most prevalent or predominant corner and make that one as sexy as possible. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to grab our laser level. This tool is incredibly important in this scenario because I'm going to drop a horizontal line, one end of the kitchen, and we're going to measure down from that line to the countertop to find out how level the back of the countertop is. All right, so first off in that corner, we are at 56 millimeters. All right, and in this scenario, this being exact counts, okay? We're going to go take a look here. Here we're at 60 or 59, 59, 59, 59, 59. So it's just this back corner that is just a little bit raised. Okay. So what that means to me is, since my counter is actually going up in that corner, I have to start over here because the majority of my tile is all the same height. I can start full tile, I can build my stone, and as soon as I get to the height difference, I can actually cut the bottom of the tile, scribe it in to finish my line perfect into that corner, okay? Now we've got our basic layout, we know what the program's gonna be, we gotta prep our space, okay? Preparation is huge, especially when you have butcher block counters. You wanna protect your countertop from the thin set, all right? Here we go. Lay out our bag, and then we are going to tape them down, all right? And we're going to tape them down to about 3/8 of an inch from the wall. And confirm the tile will actually install, and then there's still a little bit of space for that thin set. If I put it too close, then when I'm done, I'm going to have tape underneath the entire tile line, okay? one quick little note. Because I've got my cement board replacing the old tile countertop was longer than the new one. I actually have to do a repair here. And I can't put thin set on the cement board and expect it to work and then transition to drywall. So what I'm going to do, because it'll be too much buildup, is I'm going to transition right now so that I can go to drywall by using a little bit of oil-based paint. And that will become a sealer on top of that cement board and transition so I can go straight to fiberglass tape and then drywall compound. And then I can patch, then repair that later. We should also talk about our plan for around the window. Let's have a look here. All right. Yeah, that's the problem. Now, you have two ways to deal with windows. One way is you can do a jamb and a casing and then tile up to the casing. A lot of people will leave their window casing in place, okay? What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna cut the tile to the height of my cement board, and then I'm gonna build a jamb out to cover the tile and then put the casing over top of the tile. It's a little bit more complicated, but we have a video on how to do that. We'll put the video link in the description. Point is by getting that finished look, putting the wood over the stone gives you that depth of field, okay, that says, hey, I'm a window casing. If you tile up to it, it just looks way too clean. In a lot of cases, your tile plus thin set is going to be flush with your window, and that looks stupid because you still have the silicone there, right? So it's better to encapsulate it than it is to try to butt up to it. And that way, all of your cuts are also hidden behind the wood, all right? A much classier, sexy look. So I've got that. I've got my grinder here set up. This is a 4-inch grinder, ceramic continuous blade, and I'll do some of the little detail cuts right here so I can cut around electrical plates. But for everything else, I've got my wet saw set up outside because a lot of these cuts are going to be the same. So I'll run 3 or 4 through the saw at the same time and make my life easy. This is where it gets complicated. I have a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel for my cement board, and then I have a smaller trowel for on top because they're different thicknesses. You see how this goes? This one actually is much more raised than the bottom. So I'm going to combat that raised situation by using a thicker amount of thin set on the bottom. And then I'm going to use my rubber grout float to pound it all together to get a finish at the same depth. Fingers crossed. Okay. All right. Now, one of the things you want to do also, set yourself up with a rag or a sponge. I prefer the sponge. You always want to clean as you go here. One more thing I'm missing. There we are. Okay. I also need to take these plugs and pull them off the walls so I can slide the tile in behind this metal bracket. This metal bracket is part of the plug assembly, and it should sit over top of your tile. So after the cement is dried, you can tighten that back up again. Get a nice clean look on your appliance. You don't have to put any kind of an extension box or anything. Ceramic is not flammable, okay? So you can just back out the screws, put in your tile, and then tighten the screws after it's all dry. Be careful, use a hand screwdriver for that. If you use a drill, you can over tighten and crack your tile. Also, we're gonna wanna use these, the lash wedges. It's the floor leveling system. The bottom part of this wedge is very flat and very thin, and that's all we need to put underneath our tile, just to create that 1/16, 1/32 of a gap from countertop to tile so that it can move independently of the counter because it's attached to the wall, and the counters aren't. We're gonna be using dry erase marker to mark my tile. So let's say I wanna do an L shape. I can measure that on, okay? And then when I'm done, that just wipes right off. This is a glazed tile, okay? So this is a great tool. Other than that, I think I'm almost ready to go. I've got to go mix my thin set. I'm gonna go outside to do that. Today I'm using Schluter All Set because I have 2 substrates. One is cement and one is vinyl, okay? Now the cement board is a little porous, the vinyl isn't. So I have to use 2 different technologies in order to put that thin set on, or I use a thin set that has both technologies in the mix. So that's why we're using the Schluter All Set. No matter what you're tiling, if you use this one product, it applies for every scenario. If this was just drywall, we could use an adhesive. I've done that in the past, works great. But because it's a combination of material, the vinyl, the cement needs to cure wet. Over the cement board, the cement would need to cure dry by drying into that cement board. Schluter All Set works in both scenarios, and so I can make one product with two different thicknesses because of the level. Now always, always, always add water first. And we're not going to make that big of a batch here. It is just a backsplash. It gives me about 1.5 hours of working time. Here's my product. Yes, it's a modified thin set, but it has been designed to also operate as a non-modified at the same time. So this is what I'm talking about, having that flexibility. And that's what I'm talking about, the dust, okay? Now we can see it. We're going to use this mixing paddle here. For drywall, it's got to be incredibly clean. Now this drill is very sensitive. I hate it, but I bought it because I'm cheap. Finger, you drag, and the hole closes up on itself. Okay? 10 minutes from now, we're ready to start installing tile. All right, here we go. Now, you will notice that the end did chip off a little bit, just a touch. But when we're putting on tile, we're always overlapping corners. We're leaving a bit of a gap, and then we're finishing with silicone, all right? So don't have to go through the process of cutting from both sides. If it chips a little bit, it's not the end of the world, all right? Here we go. And the end on this one is already marked. I'm going to go like this. Now you'll notice that that black mark washed off right away, okay? So for this one, because I want to be really consistent, I'm going to bring my guard over, bring the guard up to the tile, lock it in place. And then I can cut. All right, so we've had a few minutes for the cement to set up. Now I'm going to do the drag test again. Here we go, and let's see if it holds its shape. Perfect. Now that is perfect thin set, everybody. That is what you want all day long, every day. While you're working, if you want to check to see if your thin set's getting too dry, do that again. You'll feel it. All right, if it doesn't feel wet, throw it out and get some new stuff. All right, here we go. Going to start with a 1/4 by 3/8, and that is 1/4 by 3/8 deep. Okay. Wow. All right. Now I'm going to trowel it just a little flatter than usual because I don't really need a 3/8 gap, right? So the way you do that is instead of holding it out so that all 3/8, instead of holding like this so you get the whole gap, you put an angle on it, and now the top of that hole is actually closer to the wall. You can really customize it. And in that back corner, I'm going to take my shorter trowel, just because I'm going to find this to be simpler to use too, than to be constantly changing the depth. That'll make things too more inconsistent for me. And consistency is key, okay? Now, I'm going to take this trowel here, and I'm going to start at the top. Because I know that this thin set is good for about an hour in the pail, but it's also good for about 20 minutes on the wall. Whew, okay. It's gonna be messy. That's why we got the plastic, okay? Now, let's start with a full tile in the corner first, and it's installed. It's that simple. Put our spacers underneath. Now we have unique spots here, these bumps, okay? So that when you put the tiles together, it creates a grout line. It happens here, it happens here, it happens here, and it happens here, all right? So if that's where the bumps are, that's where I want to put the spacer. If I put the spacer in between the bumps, then the bumps are still touching your countertop. Not the effect that we're going for. So, get these about 1 inch from each end. Okay, you saw the lift? Here, that's on the counter. Watch the lift. Lifted, okay? Perfect gap, all right? Now, I can install this gently and tight to the other tile, okay? All the way across the bottom. First, I'm going to clean all the way across the bottom, okay? We're not pushing too hard here. This is the secret sauce, all right? Always cleaning as we go. If you stay clean, your job site stays clean, all right? Now, we're gonna go an inch from each end, do the lift. We already measured, we know that the counter is level here. All right. Maintaining that perfect gap for our grouting and our sealing. Now the ends also have the bumps, so we can slide all this over. Okay, that's it. Whew. Deep breath. Now, we're gonna start with our half tile. There's my cut, it goes against the wall. And on the other side, we're gonna line it up where another half tile intersect, okay? And that'll be our design element. So here, no more yellow spacers, just goes right on top of each other. Okay, nice and gentle. The reason we're going to do gentle is once we build the wall, we're going to get the grout float to set the depth. Okay, nice and gentle. Just enough thin set so it doesn't fall off the wall, okay? And I've got finishing nails coming out of that wall. Unbelievable. The challenges you face working with this kind of construction. Now we put this in. Perfect. Okay, now we want to do this corner. All right, so we're going to put the tile here and make our mark. Remember, we're putting a window casing on. You don't have to be perfect. The window casing is going to come out about 2.5 inches. So anywhere in here is perfect for the cut. All right, so don't make your life miserable by getting so exact that you run into problems. All right. Remember, it's hard to measure the bump to the bump, so I'm going to give myself a little mercy. Okay, that'll be fine. And I'm taking this trim off to add 5/8 or 3/4 stock to build out for the window. So I'm going to go way back. I have nothing to prove to anybody here. And then to the middle, right? Here we go. Now, I could do that on a wet saw, but then my tile is soaking wet, and I don't want it wet. So I'm going to just use the grinder real quick, and we'll show you how to use that. Now, you can go outside to do this. It does make a little bit of dust, but if it's only a couple of cuts and you're in an active construction zone like I am, it's not a big deal. All right, there we go. Now, that's dry. Okay, so it'll bond really nice to this thin set. All right. Okay, there we go. Now, we can take our half pieces that we cut, put all those in, again, nice and gentle. Okay. Now, we have to do this cut and the ones across the top. So, here we are. We're going to take that much off. And I'm just going to mark that because that's my end. And I can just measure by holding a tile here. And I'm good with leaving myself an extra 1/8. The actual measurement is right here, but I'm leaving myself an 1/8. And that's for this reason. I want to be able to have the tile, and then I'm finishing with a silicone line on top of my grout. It'll deal with inconsistencies and make your life a lot more pleasant, all right? No one's going to be staring up underneath it to check out your work. So give yourself about an 1/8 of an inch here instead of the 1/16, and you'll be fine. Okay, so here are my tile off the wet saw. Have a rag, guys, to keep it dry. You can install wet tile on thin set. All right, now here we go. We're gonna stick this one in now. There we go. And then the cut edge goes towards picture frame. And then all we do, because we've got the height for that cut, we'll touch that corner. Oh, look at that. It's going to be right at the edge of that. So this is just a straight cut. All right, I'm going to do that and be right back. Okay. You got to be kidding me. Got to do a little bit of a grind of this. A bit of a hair of a notch to get around that. Oh yeah, that's still causing me an issue, eh? There it is. Perfect. All right, one more stone there. Cut the length, and then the height is not going to be cut. It'll be perfectly full. There we go. I will cut this one and be right back. You're going to realize if you're doing this kind of a project, sooner or later, that you're going to spend half your time going back and forth to the wet saw. Now you have an option. We did a video it was a while ago. It was a few years back. We did another subway tile, and I had a little small scratch and snap tool, okay? If your tile doesn't have too much texture, it works out great. I didn't grab it for this one because this one actually has a bit of a bevel to it, and I wasn't sure how that was going to end up playing out. So I need a little bit more thin set on this tile. But if you're doing a big space, consider getting a scratch tool. Okay, there we are, and install. There we go. That part is done. Now we're going to start moving from here to all the way to the other side and cut around all of our plugs. I want you to realize something here. This stuff here is starting to get thick and dry, okay? And that is not a good thing. You know, tile work fails for a lot of different reasons. Some of the more common ones are temperature variation. You bring your tile in, it's cold, and you're putting it in a warm house. You get instant condensation on smooth surfaces, such as the back of tile. That little film of water keeps the thin set from bonding to the tile. So then after, when it's dry, your tile isn't engaged. Okay, the second one is your thin set has been sitting for too long, and the chemical reaction of setting that up, at a microscopic level, the surface of that thin set is already dry. Now, depending on how much you're going to collapse your ridges, will determine whether or not that's going to be a problem or not. But in most cases, yeah, it's a problem. Okay, we're going to use a lot more thin set here. We really need to build that out. There we go. Okay, so room temperature tile. Okay, make sure that your tile edge is kept wet. All right, and all things should go well with you. Now, I have this last cut one here. I have too much thin set in here, so we're going to clean this out. All right, it'll just make a mess. There we go. Now I have to cut this one. And again, not concerned about how close I get, and I'm going to be cutting it in half. There we go. That is going to work out great. You can also use these little wedges as cleaning tools if you have thinset got caught in your grout lines. All right. Okay. Here we go. Let's check out our plug. Okay, we're going to just trace off above it and on each side so we know where our tile needs to be. Okay, so you can see that generally speaking we have a solid 1/8 of an inch. So if we cut our tile tight to this, the plug will cover. All right, and then we're going to cut our tile just off the edge of the box as well. So any of these little gaps, the plates will cover. All right, and that's how you plan and from the beginning. When we're measuring, we get our eyes at the same height as what we're measuring, okay? Get on their material, get right on here. There's my cut line, okay? And then I'm gonna go like this, right off the box, right off the box. Now the box is not flush with the wall, so we gotta make sure that our cut is on the, just to the side. Or we're gonna run into a little bit of issue, okay? There we go. Okay, there we go. Clean as you go, clean as you go. Now, I'm not happy with this tile. I think if you're, just what I'm seeing is I'm seeing this box, the edge of the box is behind my tile and it's causing it to lift. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go cut just a little bit more right back to here. And that tile is too wet to be able to use that on. Okay. You also notice that I'm dry on this side. When you see something like that, throw a little extra thinset there. Things aren't flat. They cause you problems, all right? So I'm gonna go and correct this situation. I'll be right back. Let's see if we got it right this time. All right. Now, put this one on. Now here comes the trick. Time for the next little stunt, hey? I gotta get this piece in the same position as this piece, but up here. So I have to cut the plug out and cut it the right length. And the only way to do that is you need a line to reference from. So we're gonna take our laser level and drop it right in that gap. Okay, that'll translate my line. Piece of cake, right? Now I can draw exactly what I need. There we go. And there's my end cut. Okay, and here is my height. Get nice and low there. There we go. Just because we measure right doesn't mean we go without the laser. Let's put that back. Okay, and I put thinset on the back of the tile over here. And we're gonna just line that up till we are incredibly happy. So two things that are happening here. One is we're lining up the bumps and those transitions as well. Now there is none here, so I'm gonna add a shim, try to keep that level, okay? We got a lot of cuts here. Once we get past this plug though, it'll move relatively quick. Now, to be honest, guys, sometimes a cut like this requires 2 or 3 shots at it. So don't be hard on yourself if you don't get it the first time. Remember, we're gonna do the long one here, then a relief cut, and then we'll make this cut on the wet saw after I make this cut. That should just about do that. Now you'll notice I cut from the back side because I wanted to have, when you're dealing with a round blade, it doesn't cut as far on the backside. So I wanted to make sure I was making that intersection so that it does act like a relief cut. Here we go. Perfect every time. Okay, here we go. Well, that ought to work. All right. Where are we here? Once again, we're going to set this up, get our lines, get our lines straight. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. Nice. And boom. Okay. Bam. Okay, that wall is done. All right, so we're going to start here and work our way to the corner, and whatever happens down there happens. I'm not saying we're ignorant to it. Like if I get down there and I have a 1/4 inch, I'm going to measure when I get close. I can always widen up some of my grout spacings to move the tile and eliminate that gap. There is a cheat. But first we got to get past the stove area, and then we will worry about how that finishes off down there. So right now we have to do a little thinking ahead. We're going to have an issue right here on this wall. So I have to, oh, here, I'll measure this way. Measure and install some structural supports. Now I'm cutting it 1/4 inch shy on purpose just to make my life easy. I don't want to have to run out and do this again, but I'm going to cut this and screw it to the wall so I can transfer the load of that tile, because the thin set that I'm using, it's not a high quality adhesive. A high quality adhesive will actually hold the tile in place. So you don't need to do this. But if you're using thin set, you've got to put some structural weight relief there, okay? It's got to hold it in place until such time as it's dry. And that takes about half an hour to 45 minutes, all right? So let me cut that and get right back. Okay, so I know I've got a piece of wood here. Yeah, that works. I got a piece of wood over here. All right, here's how we set this level. First thing to do is check your trim. Make sure it's flat. It is. Okay? No good to me, right? So now I'm squeezing them together, and I'm using this thumb and pushing down on both sides. And that'll be where we set this screw. Exactly flush with the countertops. All right, now we've got this package. These are our ends. Because we're starting on the end, I'm gonna add it now instead of later. Okay. That happens. This wall is very strange because I'm in the middle of a renovation, and we did the waterfall countertop. If you haven't seen that video, butcher block waterfall, hello, very sexy. We're going to be actually capping this with some wood that's going to be extending a little bit, and then a little return trim, a little something to close that gap, okay? So the truth is I'm going to have something over here to close that gap, all right? All the way up. So this goes right to the end of that. Okay, so that's going to be my finish. So my trim will finish here, my tile will finish here. Okay? Just dropped my drill, I caught it, lost another one. This piece might be big enough to go over here though. Save that for later. Wow. Clumsy, clumsy, clumsy. we're going to set this line right off the edge of the wood, okay? And we're going to get started. Now we're going to take our thin set and expertly apply just a little bit to the back of this. Okay. We'll just check by putting this off the countertop. Okay, and then we'll nudge that over a little bit. Got it. That I'm happy with. So here we go. Now we're going to investigate our space in case we need to make any last minute changes to the dimension. We're just shy of 89 inches, okay? Now we take our template, which is our original wall, that we started with a full tile, and we're going to go check, see what happens at 89 inches. 89 inches, I have 3 inches of tile left. So that means I'll have a 3-inch tile over here, right? And then like a 5-inch tile over here. So this corner will look very much like this corner. I'll have a 3-inch and then a longer one. So what we can do in order to make that look more uniform, like it was wrapped around the corner, is we'll start with the half tile. So I'm going to have a 2/3 tile to finish. And then that small one will line up with this big one. Does that make any sense? Because I started with a full. So if I mirror that, starting with a full, I come back here and I only have 3-inch tile. And that will look really stupid. It'll look like butterfly wings. Ugly. So we'll start with the half tile here, end up making it look like we intentionally wrapped and went this way. But if we do that, I'm going to have weird slivers down here and it's not going to look uniform. So we will start on the outside edge. Okay. Let's just go throw this all on now. If I could just give you one piece of advice about doing tile, it's about take your time. This is all about perfection, not about performance. Doing a DIY project is all about eliminating the stress of your life from hiring a contractor. So not forcing yourself to work fast, but force yourself to work smart. Remember, a project like this is supposed to look like the kitchen was installed over top of the stone, not look like the stone was installed last. So precision is key. Finishing everything off with a thin grout line and a little bit of silicone, make it all look flawless. You can't achieve that look if you're in a rush. In this particular project, we ran into issues because there was one stud that was bowed into the room right in the middle of the stove, and it caused a little bit of lippage. Now we're going to move into grouting, and I'm going to show you a few tricks that you can use to hide those mistakes so that they are pure flawless to all of your friends and family. Today, I'm using Poly Blend Plus non-sanding grout. Never used it before. This is from the Custom Building Products, and they're exclusively at Home Depot. Met them at a trade show, went through the product line. Good guys, seem to know what they're talking about. We're gonna try it. I'm not familiar with it, but since they're selling it at your store that most of you are shopping at, we're gonna give it a college try and get some experience. And no, stop asking me to use the pre-mixed grout. I'll never use that stuff. It won't happen. Let's just get that off the plate. I'm a big fan of mixing my own grout for a lot of different reasons. But here we go. Now see this? All I did was wet that. So just to be clear, here's my knife, it's on an angle, okay? Just going like this, the tip of that knife is underneath the tile. And when we're done the grouting process, we're gonna add silicone with a bevel, all right? So we're actually gonna be coming in front of the tile with the silicone, just really clean. So anything that's in front of that, if I go down, like I'm making contact here with it, right? There's a risk some of this will show. So all I did was get it wet. I take it on the knife on the side, and I can go like this. It comes off without any effort. Because thin set, when it's modified in this format, takes a good couple of weeks to actually finish the curing process. Watch this. Squeeze your sponge in there. Now that's all cleaned out. Next thing you gotta do, take your damp sponge. Just go all around your wall. Okay. Making sure that the surface of the tile is clean of any thin set, and anything that might be in the gaps or cracks gets wet. All right, and if you wipe the whole kitchen all the way down, come back and wipe it again with the like wrung out sponge. After 2 or 3 passes, you're guaranteed to get all of that thin set out of the way, okay? It's not a fight. Remember, when we're mixing our grout, we're not trying to push it in and leave a huge gap. We're trying to fill that grout as close to the surface as possible. So anywhere where we have glaze, we want to actually polish the grout back to. So we're just gonna work our grout lines, not be too picky, because what's in between those grout lines, you see there's their tabs, right? Grout sits in front of that as well. So it's not gonna be that bad. One of the reasons why you want a really wrung out sponge is right here. Okay, if you use a wet sponge, water will hit this, travel around, connect the screws, and it'll electrocute that water. And then you'll touch it and you'll get, yeah, like that. Not good if you're getting older or have a heart condition, all right? So consider that. Be careful out there. That's a real charge and it'll wake you up. I'll tell you, I've had that happen to me more than once. All right, so I'm having one of those days. I just lifted out the bag to take a look at it, and it's got a tear in the bottom, so it started making a hell of a mess. I was reading the directions, and it says 1.4 liters for every 10 pounds in a 10-pound box. That's great. This is 8 liters of water, so I want to go to about 6.5 liters. Right, so we're going to pour out until I get to where I want to be, because that might be easier than pouring all this down. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. A little bit more than 6.5. And then the sand's in the hourglass bag here. Holy cow. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try to do this controlled because it can come out like one big lump and it just makes a mess everywhere, okay? Now they're telling you in the directions, get a stick and stir this for 3 minutes. Yeah, we all know what that looks like. A visit to the hospital for tendinitis. I don't know what these companies are thinking, showing us to use a stir stick. Now I get it, there are some issues with some grouts, okay? Especially browns, where there's a red dye in there and it separates if you mix it, okay? And then you can grout something and get different shades of brown all over your floors and walls. So be aware of that. But for this situation here, we're gonna go on number 1 speed, okay? On drill, and we're just gonna drill it on low, right down here on the floor. Well, there's our consistency. It's a thick, thick paste, okay? Like really thick. Not whipped cream at all. This is thick. And that drill will mix that. Try to do that by hand, you'll break your arm. So forget about it, all right? I'm gonna throw this in my water bucket. Here we go. I'm gonna put it on 3. And just wash it off for the next time. One secret about tiling is always clean every tool as you go, and then you'll never have to throw them out. So the directions on that box say, and it's like most things, you mix it and then you let it set up. Okay, so we got about 5 minutes. Just checking, because I wiped all my counters down. There's my tape over there. And now, I'm gonna just set myself up with a perimeter of protection. Okay, I know it's unsanded, so in theory, it wouldn't scratch the countertop, but that's only in theory. So this isn't huge. This is just a little something. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going within about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. So I've got my garbage pail up here. It's my counter tarp and my pail, and we're gonna get started. No, we're not, because that is ridiculously stiff. Yep, kind of figured something like that would happen. That's what happens when you follow the directions. Nowhere near enough water. You know, you take the time to read and measure, and at the end of the day, you got to mix it to the way you like it. Now, that means that in total, I used 1.6 liters of water, not 1.4 like the package says. Maybe your water is different than where I am. Maybe your water's wetter. I don't know. But I like my grout to have a little bit of fluidity to it. Okay? And it kind of should just hang and sag a little bit like that. All right? Beautiful. And it shouldn't be lumpy. So we're putting it on in a 45-degree angle, and it's not to the tile, it's the float on the wall. I can go straight in on a 45. The reason we go like this on a 45 is because we don't want the float lining up with any of the lines. Okay? Because then you don't dig the grout out. All you do is press it in. Okay? So, if you want to push it up as you go, do that. Right. Use the edges to push the grout and fill these spaces in. Okay. So when we apply, we're on a 45. When we're cleaning, we're more of a 90. You really want to put some pressure on here, clean it all off, get the excess out of the way. And in a house like this, built out of 2x3s, the wall is not going to be flat. So come from more than one direction. Make sure you get as much of the grout off as you can, because all that does is create work when you're washing. Okay, when you're washing, the more you have to remove, the faster your water gets dirty. The more times you've got to stop what you're doing and get another clean pail of water. Or it makes it really difficult at the other end, okay, to try to buff the tile because you've got so much grout left on there. All right, here we go. We'll get another little batch of new stuff over here. Now, I'm going to lean into the corner, work my way out this time, loading up near the top where my float is square. Okay, and then I'm pushing it in to that gap all across the top of the cabinets. All right. Same thing on the bottom. You can already see down here where we cleaned the tape out. Right, the grout is filling in that gap. It looks really nice and clean. Making real sure around your plugs you get that gap right up to the edge. Right, like if I got a spot right there like 1/8 of an inch or something that's not done, what'll happen is when the cover plate goes on, it'll be obvious. So always make sure you start right there. Leave a little bit extra right on the edge if you have to. No big deal. That's done. We're gonna leave it in the pail. I'm gonna toss a little bit of water in it so that it stays cool and it doesn't heat up. And it lasts a little longer. So I've got the ability to grab a little bit of thumb here. In case we get some pinholes, we can use it in a minute. Okay, so first thing is first, you gotta wash the tools. All right, so we go back to the beginning. And we're cleaning that edge, right? And we're trying not to use too much pressure. All right, so generally they want you to wait about 30 minutes before you polish, okay? And that's fine. What I'm doing is just a quick wash. Okay, getting the excess off. This is really light sponge work. Just cleaning up my workspace, okay? Now, I'm not really trying to polish the stone as much as I would otherwise. Just making sure I got my excess grout out of the way. It's a lot easier at 30 minutes if you've sponged off the extra stuff just nice and lightly. All right. Okay. When you wash it, you wring it, get it nice and dry. This is not the time to be up here with a wet sponge. We're just buffing, taking off extra material, doing a pre-buff really is what it is, to identify if we can make nice lines. Here we go. We got a nice line down there now. That's good. Okay. Get all the excess off of the ceiling of the under cabinets. Anywhere where tile changes plane, which is one side changes direction, that's a plane. Or when it comes in contact with a different material, so we go from ceramic to hardwood, countertops, or to the cabinets, or any other materials, or a different kind of tile. Expansion joints, all kinds of stuff. You want to use silicone, all right? And in a few minutes, I'll come back around the other side. We'll start all over again. Okay, I'm going to be a little patient here right now. Okay, so the first thing you got to take a look at is lippage. Lippage is going to happen, especially on walls where you've got wood construction, because the wood is not flat. So all your walls are not flat. So you're going to have lippage. And the industry has certain allowable amounts of lippage, okay? The smaller the tile, the more it hides the lippage, okay? And also, the more linear you stack your tile, the more it hides your lippage. So as soon as you start going offset, you invite that environment. Because as the wall moves in and out, okay, your tiles are meeting in different locations. And so they can be moving and installing like this. So we have a little lippage right here. All right, and check this out. I can see the grout covering the tile on the corner. The secret here to get rid of the lippage is to take your sponge and go in the direction where that corner should be exposed. And you wipe that out until the corner of the tile is exposed. Okay? Now there's a slight shadow, but there's slight shadows everywhere. Leaving that grout there really enhances the obviousness of that lippage. All right? That's one thing you want to look at. Number two, let's see if we can find an example of this. All right, right here. See those lines in the grout? Looks like somebody used a really fine comb, okay? That's the effect of the sea sponge going up and down. So the way we deal with that is we go sideways. And we buff that soft. Now there's no lines. Okay? So you'll notice that even using a sea sponge, because it's got texture, will leave lines in the grout. So gentle is the key. So if you're always going against the line to polish, or in circles, very effective. Now what polishing does is it gets rid of all the little bumps and ridges. Here's another little spot where there's lippage. This obviously, there's a stud here that's proud. So we're gonna go on like that on the corner. We're gonna get rid of it, okay? Go across that joint and soften it up. And now we've got a spot here. You can see this thin gray line. This is actually thin set stuck on the tile. No matter how hard you try to clean, you're gonna get this happening. So what I do is I just take my fingernail and I rub it off and I polish in that grout line again. Okay? Looking for imperfections, looking for lippage. If everything looks fine, just a nice buff. Because the buffing, that circular motion, is what gets rid of all your lines and your pinholes. And there's also a textured look to a grout line that hasn't been polished. It looks very rough, like the skin on your heel of your foot, okay? It's just rough looking. And so if you have, try to find something in the light that's even a better example. So then with a dry kind of damp sponge, gentle pressure, right? Like I'm just barely touching the wall. Circular motion. Oh, didn't get it. A little more pressure. Okay, go in a couple of different directions, get rid of the pinholes. Now it's nice and soft, all right? That's all we're doing. All right, I'm gonna just demonstrate a little something here. Here's the back of the ceramic. It's more of a beige color. The front is a white gloss, okay? Now here's the side. And you can see the beige where the little tab is, and the white gloss runs around the edge, but only halfway down that tile. It's not glossy all the way. And some tiles are really specific where the gloss is just right to the edge. So when you have that lippage factor going on, the more of this material that you remove between the tiles, the more you're showing around the edge of your tile, exposed from different angles, okay? And that's the danger. So just remember, less is more. Letting everything set up, especially if you have really cheap tile and you don't have much of a side glaze, okay? Remember, when we're working with light, every time a surface is in a different direction, it catches the light different and it's a different color and it will stand out. It'll look like a shadow, okay? Or a really bright spot. So try to use less is more. Make sure that you're exposing your corners without digging the grout out, okay? And then when you get that happy place, stop. That's just the best advice I got. When you're happy with it, stop. Stop fussing with it. You can always come back later. You've got half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour. You can get clean water or a clean sponge. You can take a microfiber rag. You can dry everything off first. Have another look, okay, inspect again. If you need to, you can take a damp rag and you can polish in one space and resurface it, all right? And if it's absolutely necessary, grab your pail with the water, with your old grout, okay? Because there's water sitting in the bottom, I still have loose grout that I can mold with a little bit of moisture. And with my thumbs, you can see how smooth that gets, right? I can still apply some of this, give it 10 minutes to dry out, and then sponge it in and polish it in if I have to. So don't be in a panic. That's why I recommend this type of product, because it dries slow in the pail as well. So you've got time. If you dig too much out, you can go get some, put it back on there, leave it messy so it's easy to identify, work your way around the room, come back to something messy. What the hell, all right? Oh, let's just say I did that. Oh, now that's really clean, but now it has a really dark line. Okay, so what I want to do is go, that has a dark line, it's screaming at me. Yeah, so this would be over cleaned, all right? So you take a little bit of your paste, you throw it on here, and you just rub it in, okay? Now I'm just using my fingers instead of a grout sponge. So unfortunately, it wants to just kind of like completely wipe away. There we go. Now we got it left in the grout line. That's a repair, okay? It's messy, but that's okay. The goal here is to make sure that when we're finished, it looks good, right? Ugly in the middle is fine. All right, now I gotta keep on polishing. Here we go. Okay, this is great. All right. I'm just getting a little bit of moisture on here. And what it does is it softens up the grout lines, right? Gives it that nice, soft, kind of cloudy, powdery look as compared to something that's been raked or combed in. All right, good. Let's go back to our repair now. Okay, now this has only been a minute. I might have to fix this after I try this, but we're just gonna go, this corner is sitting proud. So what I first wanna do is walk away from it, okay? And then I'm gonna polish back to it and leave as much of that material on there as I can. That is a much better look. Cheers. All right, here we go. Now you see that that edge isn't perfect. That's okay. Take your sponge, gentle pressure, one wipe. There we go. Now that edge is perfect. Now it still needs to get that clear silicone, but that is a really sexy edge. If you put a thin bead of clear silicone there, not translucent, that crap goes yellow, clear silicone, it'll look like wet countertop all day long right on that joint. It'll never break off, and you'll be super happy. Okay. Remember, this is just protection against my grout sponge. It's not actually an edge of anything. We're done with all that. Now, the next thing for me to do is obviously give the whole counter a wipe. Make sure my whole edge is nice and clean and I don't have any stray lines of grout, okay? I really want that to look cut, like a paintbrush cut. In order to get that look, I'm gonna have to wipe it with a clean sponge. There we go, all right? There we go, now that's what sexy's all about right there. Oh yeah. Now, every time I'm wiping with a sponge right now, I'm leaving a bit of a haze, okay? Because the water's dirty. So what we're gonna do is get a new pail of water, clean out my sponge, throw a little bit of dish detergent in there, just a drip, okay? So that we can actually remove the grout surfaces from all the wood cabinets and the countertops and get this nice and clean. And that's it. Well, there you have it. This is the basics on how to get a tile backsplash job to completion. And listen, we obviously had some unique challenges here. And if you got unique challenges on your projects, feel free to join our membership. Jump on over here where I can help and consult you on our Discord. You can send me pictures and video, and we can help you with solutions to the products and the projects, the tips and tricks that you're going to need to get to the finished result that you were hoping for. Cheers till next time.